Greetings and love and kindness, family. First, giving honor to the creator of this universe and all that inhabits it, and to my mother, Shirley Hardy, the elder in my life. I greet you all today in love and kindness. I'm Dr. Karen Khadijah Davis-Foulks. They call me Dr. K. I work in Washington, D.C. I own the Arc of Self-Healing and Self-Help. That's health education for longevity and peace. My message is quite simple. Health is all about consciousness, and healing is a function of consciousness. We're talking about the mental equivalent. Whatever you see in your life right now is because it's the outpicture of what you have in your mental, your consciousness. And if you want to change your health paradigm, you must first change the way that you think about it. One of the books that I share with my clients that come to me in Washington, D.C., because we're on your way to being a student. We are all students, and we support one another in our journey here on earth. So one of the pamphlets that I share with my students to help them begin to readjust the way they think about healthcare, letting them know that they are not a diseased person, that you are health, you were born with health, and you remain healthy as long as you say. And so what I do with them, I share with them a little pamphlet by Emmet. This pamphlet right here, that's called Life is Consciousness. Because the only way to change things in your life that you do not like is by your consciousness. That is the key. Everything that you have in your life is from a state of consciousness. What you say and how you project that image onto your world. I want to help you reach a higher level of health and wealth. And we do this by reprogramming our mind. Our conscious state is most important in reprogramming our mind, our conscious mind, and our subconscious mind. We're talking about going to the super consciousness, and that's what this little book will help you with. And so now many people are able to get their hands on this little book. So I want to help you begin your journey in conscious self-health care. We're talking about the art of shift, family and community. We are moving from a diseased state of consciousness to a state of conscious awareness. We're talking about mental observation view is essential for your success. So now, after listening to this video, you can sit back and be the observer of your life, of your consciousness, and seeing if you're keeping yourself in a state of sickness. So let me begin. It's probably going to end up being about 3 videos, because what this video is also purposely done for is to start off and kick off tapping consciously to self-health care. We're talking about tapping consciously. And so at the end of the video, I will demonstrate the first positive conscious tapping procedure to shake your body up into a new way of thinking. So sit back, relax, get your tea, and listen as we take this universal love ride about conscious self-health care with Emmet with Life is Consciousness. Life is Consciousness by Emmet. I feel it to be a great honor to have the opportunity to speak at Unity headquarters. As Charles Fillmore has said, I feel very familiar with the Unity message, for I have read it for over 30 years. Of course, that is giving away giving away quite a bit, but people always give themselves away sooner or later, so it may as well be sooner. I have lived all my life in London until recently. Being there, I suppose, about 4,500 miles from Kansas City gave me the opportunity to realize how far-flung this work has been. I doubt if you people here at Unity realize how great and how large the Unity work is. The truth movement, as we call it, is the most important in the world today. The truth movement, which centers in the beliefs in the omnipresence and availability of God. It's the most important thing in the world because it is the only thing that can save the world. Nothing else can. Nothing else has been tried. Everything else has been tried. People have tried to build up might and power and have used them to wreck themselves. People have built up intellectual power, especially since the Renaissance. Education has been intellectual. People are surprised when you tell them that there is any other kind of education. Those of us who have had the advantages of higher education know that so-called intellectual study gives very, very little help in the practical business of living. This truth movement comes along, takes hold of people, changes them, restores health. It has been lost, restores estate. If that has been lost, restores self-respect. If that has been lost, it puts people on their feet and shows them that there is something worth living for. Among the various sections of the present day truth movement, unity is probably the most important. Your work is practical. It has the character of quality of Jesus Christ because it is kindly and friendly. You do not put fear in people. When they come, you tell them that God is the only power. You tell them to relax, become quiet, and turn to that power. That is the highest message you can teach. I am one of Fillmore's spiritual children, so I just thought I would say that before getting on to the things which I actually came to say. I am not speaking to the general public, but I am speaking to the general public now, but to the people who are devoting their lives to the study and expression of this truth. I think it is well that we remind ourselves what it is that we really believe and have. The answer is that we have the key to life. We do not just approach life from a particular angle as other schools of healing do. We have the key to life, and that key is that life is a state of consciousness. The explanation of all your problems, the explanation of all your difficulties, and the explanation of your triumph in life boils down to this. Life is a state of consciousness. That is the beginning and the end. That is the final step in metaphysics. All the other steps lead up to that. Isaac Pennington, the Quaker, said, "All truth is a shadow, but the last truth." And the last truth is that life is consciousness. You are, and you have, and you do in accordance with your consciousness. That is the beginning and the end. There are other ways of looking at life which are superficially correct, but ultimately the final truth is that your life is a state of consciousness. Your so-called physical body is the embodiment of a part of your consciousness. Your home is the embodiment of another part of your consciousness. The kind of work you are doing, whether you are in work which you love or work which you hate, it is the expression of your consciousness at that point. The kinds of people you meet and the people you attract into your life are the expressions of your consciousness about your fellow human beings. If you came to me and told me that you could not get along with people, I would tell you to get a card about the size of a postcard and write this on it: like attracts like. Then put it inside your closet where other members of your family won't see it, because when you are grumbling and finding fault, they could point their fingers, which would be very embarrassing. So put your card inside your closet. People come to me and say, "If you only knew the kind of family I have, if you only knew the kind of people I have to be with and work with," I say, the law of being says, like attracts like. The ultimate explanation is that life is a state of consciousness. Unless you change your state of consciousness, nothing else can change. All trouble, all disappointment, all depression, all limitation is a state of consciousness. People are trying to change outer conditions, but leaving their consciousness unchanged, and that cannot be done. The only fundamental way to change things is to change your consciousness, because you always must and always will get the conditions that belong to your consciousness. You cannot cheat nature. I gotta say that again. You cannot cheat nature. You can drag to you through willpower certain things that do not belong to you, but you can only keep them for a short time. The moment you take your hands off, they fly away. That was the real cause of the financial collapse of 1929. Thus, prosperity that had been built was not true prosperity. People had been gambling on the stock market and had attracted or dragged to them prosperity that they were not entitled to by right of consciousness. And of course, they could not keep it. Now, the same thing applies to health. You can compel a certain part of your body to picture health for a short time. But if you do not have the consciousness of health, you cannot keep it. You heal a person of rheumatism, and he has sciatic. You heal him of that, and he has trouble with sight. You heal his sight, and his lungs weaken, and so on and so forth. These are not healings. They are temporary cures, because they are attempts to put into the body something that does not belong there by reason of consciousness. When you want to solve your problems or change your life, you can see that the only way to change your consciousness. Nothing can come to you permanently, nothing can stay with you permanently except what you are entitled to by your consciousness. Let me say that one more time. Nothing can come to you permanently, nothing can stay with you permanently except what you are entitled to by right of consciousness. Emerson said, "No man and no institution was ever written down or talked down by anything but itself." People may slander you, but no one can hurt you except you. Nothing can wreck a church or a center or a movement or a country except itself. A woman said, "I started a center and everything went beautifully until some horrible person spoiled everything." I replied, "You are the horrible person. You spoiled your center. Because if you started a center and it didn't succeed, then you did not have a right of consciousness for that work. You should have changed your consciousness until you did have a good center, and then nobody else could have spoiled it for you. Your body, your home, your city, your country, the universe is a picture of consciousness. Your private life outpictures your own consciousness. The national life is the outpicturing of the national consciousness. So you see, how foolish is it to try to change the outer picture without changing the inner consciousness. People come to me and say, "I'm broke. I need $100,000. I need the money." Or I've had a quarrel with someone, which usually means they expected the other person to bend to their will and come crawling for forgiveness. They say, "Put these things right." I say, "Change your consciousness. I do not treat for money. I do not patch up quarrels like that. But I do help you change your consciousness." Some of them smile and say, "Oh no, my consciousness is really quite good." Other people are to blame. My mother or my sister. I answer, no. The real trouble is in your consciousness. And all the time you are trying to work on outer things and leaving your consciousness unchanged. No permanent good can come to you. Here's a little story for you. The movies came to a big city first and finally arrived in a remote mining camp in the Rockies. The picture was announced and the tent was put up. The residents had never been to the movie. The tenants were packed with cowboys and miners. And at a given moment during the showing of the blood-curdling melodrama, the villain began to choke the heron. A cowboy in the front row pulled out his gun and fired 6 shots into the villain. Of course, everybody laughed, because those days a gunshot didn't mean much. There were only a few bullet holes in the screen. And of course, the picture went on as scheduled. Now, why do we laugh at the cowboy? You all laughed, you know. What should he have done? Instead of firing at the screen, he should have turned around and fired into the projector. That would have stopped the picture. Too often you try to change outer things instead of changing the inner. You are firing at the screen of the projector. You are firing at the screen instead of the projector. So nothing happens. But when you start to change your consciousness, you are firing at the projector. And then things happen. If you do not like the picture on the screen, change the reel. If you do not like the picture you are seeing and would like to see some other, you want to get a cloth and write and try to rub it off as if from a blackboard. You will take out that reel and put in the reel you want. The scientific way to approach life, if you don't like the picture you are getting, is to change the reel. The scientific way to approach life, if you don't like the picture you are getting, if you do not like the picture you are getting, the scientific way to approach life, if you do not like the picture you are getting, is to change the reel. Yeah, I said it a couple times. I wanted you to hear that. I wanted to penetrate that. So, how do we change the reel? How do you change the reel, family and community? By raising in consciousness. The only real healers are practical ones. I have met a few theoretical healers. I have met people who told me just how healing should be done. They understand the theory, they know how it should be done, but could not do it. They were purely theoretical. The way to meet a problem is to raise your consciousness. The way to meet a problem is to raise your consciousness. The way to meet a problem is to raise your consciousness. If you do, the problem disappears. In the Bible, the valley always stands for trouble, sin, limitation. The mount for uplifting thought, and prayer for understanding. We must go up into the mountain. We must raise our consciousness. Most people who have a problem concentrate on the problem. Most people who have a problem concentrate on the problem. Most people who have the problem concentrate on the problem. They take it to bed with them and stay awake all night thinking it over. Let go of the problem. Let go of the problem. Let go of the problem. Rise above it in consciousness. How can you do this quickly? Go up quickly in a flash if you can, but you can't always do it that way. You will find that by reading the Bible or some valuable spiritual book or unity publication, or by repeating some favorite hymn, your consciousness will rise. If a driver goes to the bottom of the sea, he wears lead shoes. But if he wants to come up to the surface of the water quickly, he kicks off the lead shoes. Then he rises rapidly. When we rise in consciousness, we kick off our shoes, and then we begin to be healed. Or the patient begins to be healed. But you have to heal the consciousness. I'm going to say this one more time, and I'm going to end this first part of Life is Consciousness. I am a creator, you are a creator, and you are creating your life. If you don't like what you see, family, community, it's time to rise in consciousness. If a diver goes to the bottom of the sea, he wears lead shoes. But if he wants to come up to the surface of the water quickly, he kicks off the lead shoes, then he rises rapidly. When we rise in consciousness, we kick off our shoes, and then we begin to be healed. Or the patient begins to be healed. But you have to heal the consciousness. So if you are believing in disease care, if you are trying to correct what they call a disease from the without it, you probably will have not reached the level of success that you want. First, you must bury the thought of disease. The body cannot be diseased. The body is miraculous, and it's wonderful, and it's God-given energy of light, love, and information. And sometimes we can create a cellular malfunction that will bring blockages, stagnation, shortages in our wires, because we are an electrical being. And the only way to get things back in balance is to rise in consciousness. I want to thank you for tuning in to part 1 of Life is Consciousness. And again, I'm Dr. Karen Khadijah Davis-Foulks. They call me Dr. K. Visit my website, www.forselllife.com. That's the number 4, the word sell, C-E-L-L, and the word life, L-I-F-E. Thank you for reviewing part 1. Now, take a deep, deep breath with me. And know that you are the creator of your life, and that we are one, and love is all there is. Heart to heart, family. Peace and love. Stay tuned for part 2 of Life is Consciousness. And you are a divine